All right, let us talk about the final UI design fundamental, and that is visual hierarchy. And I saved this one specifically for last because here's my definition of visual hierarchy. It's basically using all the other design fundamentals that we just learned about to give priority to elements in the user interface. So visual hierarchy is very important because in a sense, it tells a story and it directs the user's eye to the important elements that we want them to see. Without visual hierarchy, the user really doesn't know where they should look first. So here's an example of a lack of visual hierarchy, specifically between these two pieces of type right here. You see, Tropical Retreat is pretty much the same size as this description right here. And we're really not sure where we should be looking first. So this is a lack of visual hierarchy in this UI. So like I mentioned, you can use a variety of the UI design fundamentals that we've already learned in order to increase or to create a better visual hierarchy. So for instance, we can increase the font size and we can also make it bold. You could just choose to increase the font size but not make it bold. So there's a lot of subjectivity that you can use to create visual hierarchy. Opacity or transparency also can affect the visual hierarchy. The less contrast now that we see here, the eye might be directed towards this middle paragraph more. So using opacity definitely can affect the visual hierarchy. Now we can also use color to affect the visual hierarchy. Instead of, they may still read this first, this Tropical Retreat headline, but instead of starting off by visit our and starting to read it just from start, the next element they might see is Tropical Paradise specifically. Now, white space can also affect the visual hierarchy. If we move this up, all of a sudden it's easier to read, and so the more white space you designate around certain elements, you're going to increase the chances of a person seeing that. So here's an example where we have 3 different pieces of type, all styled exactly the same. The same font, the same font size, the same color, or just all being white, the same exact amount of contrast. So what are the ways we could increase the visual hierarchy and improve it? Well, we can increase the title here. We can also move it away and use white space. So now the eye is definitely going to be directed towards this portion first. We can also create visual hierarchy between these two elements by reducing the contrast slightly while still maintaining and being sure that you're within the WCAG color contrast ratio guidelines. And we could also make this bold, which will direct their eye to this call to action of sorts. And so we're going from this down to this. So this right here is the very first example where there's a lack of visual hierarchy, and now we've increased it by and made a better visual hierarchy through scale, white space, contrast, and font weight. So all those things have aided us into creating a much better visual hierarchy for this UI design. So going forward, we're now going to get our hands dirty, and this is going to be the fun part where we're going to start to apply all these UI design fundamentals. These fundamentals need to form the foundation of your UI design career. Once you can understand and how to apply them all, you'll be a great UI designer.